So today we're going to break down how to know if your money is being well spent and your time is being well spent with your favorite mentor, your favorite guru, and the things that they're teaching you and the things that they're giving you.
Steven, you hitting that record button without being invited to again, without getting anybody a heads up? We
It was just,
ranting?
it felt like a good spot to make sure we could capture something that we may never use. But, you know, I was thinking what's top of mind for me today as we're starting to get ready to record here.
Mhm.
And we were talking about reusing old assets for a company and their advertising and their marketing. And it
Wish you can
really
call it
just
that.
hit home with this idea that there's a difference in principles and strategies and tactics. And a
Right.
lot of the consumers
That's fair.
aren't necessarily aware, but a lot of businesses out there continue to recycle the exact same tactic, teach you a tactic, but you don't actually get to learn a principle out of it, the underlying foundation. For example, on this super special day to me that probably means jack shit to you, I'm going to run some type of discount. And to make it feel a little more tied down to something realistic, I'm going to say my birthday and I'm turning 38 years old. So you're going to get 38% off. And that is the best thing that somebody can come up with of let's just lean in on a discount to sell my worthless shit. So it just felt like an appropriate time to dive in and go.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. Well, they say that you can find value wherever you look for it. So, maybe some of those products weren't the world's worst. But maybe fucker.
You know, I
You're
feel like you're taking this the wrong way right now. I
That's
feel like
fine.
you're taking it the wrong way.
I know. No, it's just but I mean, I agree. It's and I think that when we consider what we're trying to get across today is that there was a saying that the methods are many, the principles are few, meaning that there are these central core concepts that span a lot of different ways to do them. And this is why when people try to copy someone, and in fact, I just posted something last night. So I was doing my natural, you post and scroll so that way as engagement comes through, you can make sure that you help your stuff push out there. And there's this one ad that came up, and it was a young lady. That sounds crazy. I'm 35 now, and I'm like, oh, she's so young. She's probably like in her mid 20s. She looked like a high schooler. But anyways, long story short, she's like sitting there, and like the camera's right, facing her, and you can see the laptop in the frame, and she is jamming on this thing, and this caption comes up, and the caption basically posits that if you want to grow a Facebook community, she was putting out an offer that she would give you over 200 copy and paste templates, right? And so as I'm thinking about this, okay, you're going to use 200 copy and paste templates for what? I mean, they're not specific. And I think a lot of people forget that because that was her method that worked for her specific demographic at that specific juncture in time. Maybe this was before Facebook groups started getting, a little more archaic or whatever that looks like. But there was a specific problem she was trying to solve. These are the assets she created for her specific problem, and they're not likely to work for anyone else, leaving the person frustrated and feeling like maybe Facebook groups aren't a real great place for me to gather and build a community. However, maybe it is, but that person's specific problem they solved with that asset, that method, right, or that tactic isn't relevant. And man, I'm gonna get fired up real quick. I didn't realize this was a hot topic for me. So yeah, I mean, people blindly copy because they don't understand the general premise and how to lateralize those things. And I think that that's definitely huge missing, not even just in today's business ecosystem, but also today's education ecosystem. Like, you know,
Well, it parlays even over into some other things, and there's people in the world who have done amazing things and built amazing companies. Let's say Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, and we've all heard the horror stories around how they were effectively an asshole as a leader. Meanwhile, now today, almost every leader that I know or I've had the unfortunate pleasure to be around is also an asshole and has no idea what real leadership is like. Now, I don't think they actively woke up and said, I'm going to emulate Steve Jobs today. And this one time, this one story, and this one podcast, I heard that he acted this way. But the hard reality is everybody has pros and cons, every tactic, every principle, every strategy. And the pros and cons, and what I like to kind of look at in pros and cons is rather, what do you not have to worry about managing? Your pros, the things that happen naturally. The cons are the things that you're thinking about having to actively manage. So in business, the pros and cons in a strategy to go do something in coaching, in your fitness journey, everything has things you're going to actively manage and things that are probably passively going to generally happen. But you have to make the active choice on what do you want to manage? What is the thing you want to have to think about all the time? And some of those things are things you're good at. Some of those things are things you're bad at. But when you go down the road of just like, oh, it's bad and I'm going to ignore it, like I'm only going to take all the goods from people. No, because there's no system that is truly passive that you don't have to work at. There's no systems that is perfect. And the perfect and good stuff creates the negative and bad stuff, which is why it actually works. And you need those to feed off of each other in order for it to happen. And if you want to be a shitty leader, like, fine, but figure out how to be better in certain spots. If you want to understand why an email or posts work, you should go learn the principle behind those things. So when it's not working, you can debrief against it and understand, like, what do I iterate? What do I change? And that's where a lot of these leaders and coaches and gurus are failing people today. But it's all marketing, because at the end of the day, we're going to sit here and be like, come learn the principles of XYZ thing. It's going to take, here's this time. And that's just not as sexy as get your next 10 clients in the next 10 days and generate $10,000 a month so you can be a 7-figure coach by the end of 30. Like it's just not as sexy. But hopefully everybody's starting to catch on that those quick fixes, those flash in the pan things that people are doing don't work long term, and instead kind of create some chaos and lock you into whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really interesting. It's really important for people to keep in mind too that for every failed tactic, there's a cost to the industry. And when I say that, it's one of the reasons why personal training is considered like a, potentially lesser skilled job. It's because there are these personal trainers that don't care much about understanding a lot of the principles and experimenting with different methods or tactics or strategies, which is a series of tactics. I think that's why when they experience these failures, it's not just the personal trainer or the fitness coach or the nutrition coach that experiences that, but rather there's a loss of fidelity and trust in the idea of what that professional brings to the average consumer. So now that person that got burned, they said, hey, we'll help you lose 20 pounds. Person says, oh, that's great. I have a wedding coming up. They don't lose any weight. In fact, they gain weight. They feel terrible because now their hormones are in the shitter and they can't sleep and blah, 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 right? Now, what are they going to think about personal trainers and nutrition coaches everywhere? That they're all the same. And it really does impact everyone beyond that, because had they just taken the time to slow down and truly understand what the outcome was and, experiment around with that a little bit or get a mentor to help them quickly reduce that margin of error, that person would have had such a great experience potentially, and then been more willing to, have those positive affirmations and have that positive perspective and have those positive conversations within their own community versus being like, oh my God, that personal trainer. And, because there are a lot of stigmas specifically in the training industry, and we won't get into those, but I think that, yeah, it's a systemic problem that we're running into that doesn't affect just the person that's trying to make that money, but it also the consumers and subsequently who they talk to in their ecosystems and communities.
So we're ranting a little bit. If we pull back a smidge here and we think about it the other way, like let's say I am somebody, I'm a consumer who is looking to go out and learn something, and what would we say is maybe ways to decipher between just a tactic that I can go and deploy and try out versus starting to truly understand the principle of what's going on and why this thing is inherently valuable to that person at the time they used it for the reason they needed it, et cetera, et cetera. Like, and I don't know that I have the perfect answer. I'm just kind of curious to make sure we're giving some value here, because I came on fire. I was ready to go and just roast. And I'm like, all right, why am I here? people want to hear me rant, we can have a phone call, I'm down, but you want to learn something. So,
We'll put
so
his
yeah,
phone number in the show notes.
yeah, we're probably not going to do that.
But no, I think you bring up a great question in terms of how do people become more sophisticated consumers that are aware of how they're being influenced. And Robert Cialdini has a great book called Influence that really details how people oftentimes are potentially persuaded to do things that may not necessarily be in their best interests. One of which is reciprocity. So when we go out in public and like if you've ever been given, like the people that will uninvitedly wipe your windshield down in certain streets of Atlanta, and then they expect that now they've done a service for you. You didn't ask. In fact, you tried to tell them not to, and a lot of people will feel obligated to give them money. And so when we think about how that fits in with the larger paradigm, what we're talking about here of principles over tactics, I think it's really important that we take a second to define what a tactic is, which is a process or a how-to, not necessarily an outcome. So if we want to lose 20 pounds, that's the outcome. What are the specific processes, procedures, things that we're going to have to do? We know that one of those might be being in a calorie deficit, right? So that would be a strategy. But now, what are the actual step-by-step things that we would need to do to that? We would need to maybe track your food. That would be a tactic. We would need to, consume enough water. That would be a tactic. We would need to increase our non-exercise activity. That would be a tactic. And all of those fit underneath creating a calorie deficit, which then fits under the outcome that people want. And so in order to then revisit the question you asked, Steve, in that if people want to make sure that they're not being taken advantage of, they need to continuously monitor themselves and the progress they're making to see if it's leading to that forward momentum. And if it's not, then that's where that needs to be a conversation. That's why the feedback loops that we've mentioned in a couple other episodes are so critical. It opens that dialogue between you and the service provider. And it doesn't matter if it's your bank, doesn't matter if it's your relationship. I feel like it's pretty much everywhere in terms of what are you assessing? How are you measuring it? And are you getting closer to the thing that you desire? And if not, then you should probably have a conversation with someone, see if they'll rectify it. And if not, then you should probably seek some kind of restitution.
Yeah, I would think about it too, where the thing that you're given, the super secret sauce that has created the result, right? Let's go in the realm of business and a marketing play, a giveaway maybe, right? I'm going to say it's my anniversary and I'm going to give one lucky winner free access to my thing, my course, my whatever it is. And in order, all you have to do to register is just put your name in. And why the only way to lose is by not doing this, because you only win on the other side of putting your information in. Well, that giveaway is effectively the base for that company to then say, okay, well, one person is going to win this thing, and they should hold true with that, right? If they're truly marketing, they have to. Some companies might not, but they have to. And then it's basically call all the other people and go down this road of, hey, you didn't win, you didn't get the thing, you didn't, but I'm going to give you a partial giveaway because I feel bad and I want to make you feel good because you didn't win. And then, so instead of you spending $10, you only have to spend $5 and you get the thing. Oh, okay, sure, no problem. So that is a tactic. And I might even say maybe a little bit bigger than a specific tactic and rather a strategy here. But we're still not teaching the actual principles at hand. You're not listening to this to hear all the principles going on. But the one that I'll just kind of call out to make that point understood is think about going and playing the lottery. You play the lottery, it's $500 million. No matter who you are, when you spend your $2 on your ticket and you come home, you dream, if just for a moment, of what life would be like if you won. There's just that little bit of I'm going to, and you insert your thing, whatever it is. And then the next morning you wake up, or maybe you stay up and you watch the drawing and you don't win. And you have this moment of disappointment where you're like, man, like I'm disappointed. Like I didn't win. I actually thought I had a chance this time. Well, and Andrew, you could probably tell me the technical term of this, but when somebody's disappointed and feeling down, the only thing they want is the opportunity to feel up again. They want to go back to neutral, normal, or even positive. Well, the thing I didn't get for free, now I lost, but I have an opportunity to buy it at a discount, which will likely make me feel good again, is the principle that we're starting to play with. And now we start to understand that a person's need to feel good. So, and people feel good by spending money, getting access to a thing that's going to solve a problem, whatever it might be, is one of the components of that giveaway that we're leaning into. So if somebody says, hey, go do a giveaway, blanket statement or something that's similar, but you don't start to understand some of those points within there, i.e., we're using this person's emotions to try to create the outcomes. And I've used these tactics and these strategies before. The thing you're selling them better damn well solve a problem they have. Don't just sell them something to sell them something. I'm just going to throw that out there. But if you don't know those pieces, and there's more to that entire strategy that you can lay into from a principal perspective, that's where you're starting to miss the boat. So the reason I give that example is if you do not know how to take whatever was given to you and modify it for your specific situation or a different set of circumstances, maybe, and some of the reasons why behind it, you're probably missing out on some of the principles that are actually being leveraged within there, which is the opportunity for you to dive in, ask the questions, investigate further, or just try to better relate that to the entire picture versus this one thing that will work right now to solve a problem because.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Brandon, I'd be curious to hear your, some of the things that you've seen with your experiences around running into roadblocks of things that didn't work because maybe you didn't understand the specific reason why something was supposed to work. I mean, we've talked about the nutrition coaching business stuff years ago, trying to get that up and running. I'd be curious to understand what your experience is.
Yeah, and I think a lot of my roles in the past I probably felt like 2, 3, 4 different positions where I was like the social media person, and I almost always kind of took those roles because the person hiring for those roles didn't necessarily really know what they even wanted. So I'm admitting, yeah, okay, I kind of maybe took advantage of a situation that may not have been fleshed out. My first role was a social media marketing person for an influencer, and his whole entire strategy for to get more exposure to the his supplement store was we just got to keep posting. If you post more, people will see it and it'll build awareness. And I was like, why? We're not getting any engagement. I don't even know if we're getting eyes on our page. You're so new. What's the why behind this? And so I was a lot of with all of this being talked about, I've had a lot of roles where I was the tactical doer. Like I did a lot of these type of posts where I'm like, what's the reasoning behind this? There's a lot of we're just wasting each other's times right now. I even asked I have worked for a handful of companies, and so I won't say which one, but I was like, what's the point for this? And they just gave me the most generic answer. I'm like, well, cool, I'll do it. You're paying me to do this, but I don't
love company A.
Yeah, that was company A, but that was console company. I don't know what is it called. Company
so
for me.
I think you're mentioning a lot.
Oh. No.
Can you guys hear that? It's my dryer. It goes off like the most obnoxious 30-second fucking buzz for at least it does it like 2 minutes out, 1 minute out, and then when it's done, I'm like, I'm gonna fucking burn this thing down. But I think that you mentioned a lot of great premises, and I know that everyone's saying attention is currency these days, and it's the thing that matters most, and it's how people ultimately gauge how successful they'll be in the digital space. I'm curious to know, having obviously your experience with 4 different tactical social media roles, have you found anything that seems like it's the universal thing, like the principle and I would assume, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but it's engagement because engagement drives attention. But what are the tactical and what's the principle behind social media? How does that actually influence? And obviously, Steve, I'd love your business perspective on this as well. After Brandon gets done with his actual execution stuff, but principles, tactics. I think social media is a very big question mark today.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that people can potentially leverage based upon your experience to figure that out and crack that code?
Yeah, for social media, and I think it's starting to just turn into the new print type of marketing, but really when social media, how people are taking advantage of it. And I mean, like, even look at your own YouTube, who you're subscribed to and who you follow on Instagram. You connect, you follow them for a reason, because you wanted to kind of get a little bit more of what their life looked like. And so again, these are people, not necessarily business, but there was a business I was following because I was like, oh, this is kind of cool to be able to see what the process of building a gym looks like from ground zero all the way up to this huge thing. It's same with his clothing brand. This other guy I followed too. He started a candy brand, and it was super cool to see how that process looked from his own perspective. He's a YouTube vlogger. And so for me, I was like, okay, he's not even really selling me anything, but I kind of want to buy this candy. Just, I've just kind of seen the process. It'd be cool to see what it's like from falling from point A all the way to my doorstep. But now it is what I'm starting to see a lot of. It's just becoming a lot easier because we have services, platforms like Canva, where it's a lot easier to create generic looking imagery. I actually even talked to a future guest about this specifically, how a lot of people in a certain field, you can kind of like look at their feed and be like, okay, yep, I know exactly what they're going to be, what they're advertising. I know what they're selling, and I know what field they're in just based off the color palette that they use. But now it's kind of turned into like, I feel like a Pinterest, almost like here are the highlights of my best moments, and that's cool, but I can't really connect with you like that anymore because I wasn't there from the journey. I think that even people have talked about a good way to connect is just document the whole process and just put that out there, because then you're able to build that emotional connection and with your audience, and engaging with them really is the biggest thing. If you're able to create some sort of connections with people online, I think that's where you can really start leveraging your online presence, really, because I use this example a lot. I may not be true today, but you can have, and people were doing this, people are buying followers just to make it look like that they were important or look like that they had some sort of following. You would look at their engagement, how many comments they would get. You would make, at the time, you couldn't hide likes. So you could see, like, how does this person have 50,000 followers, but they're only getting like 10, 15, 20 likes? Like, what's the picture doesn't add up here? Opposed to someone that might be like a small mom and pop shop that they're getting like maybe 500 to 1,000 followers on Instagram or something like that, but you're seeing every single one of their posts, they're getting about like 100, 200, 300 likes on their stuff. Comments like, love this place, would come again, definitely sharing this with my friends, absolutely love it. You start building that loyal following. And that, I think, really, at the end of the day, we're not out here to just kind of, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to dollar signs. So you can post all of the things you want. If you're a photographer, if you're a DJ, health coach, fitness coach, business guru, or whatever it may be, jewelry salesperson. At the end of the day, yeah, it's cool that we're getting a ton of likes, but how is that converting at the end of the day with the bottom line? Like, are they purchasing? Like, what's the conversion rates and all that kind of stuff? So that, I think, is where a lot of times people are like, okay, well, if we post, result will be pretty linear, but there is kind of what you were saying, Steve. There is that emotional ride that comes with it that I've actually never even had that discussion with anyone. It's always just been, do this and the result will come. I'm like, well, how? How is that? Like, why? I'm like, this doesn't even. I'm like, one, I'm not a graphic designer. But I've turned into one because it's like, oh, you do social media, so you do graphic design. It's like I get by, and I'm like, I made this. I wouldn't even click on this. Like, this isn't necessarily like what I would. Like, I did my best. I'm not a professional graphic designer. You put me in. If we were talking photos or video, different story. But I was like, I'm not like even the person behind the design. I'm like, I don't know. I want to buy it.
Well, and that's the thing, because it's a journey as well, right? There's the idea that, I'll go back to that giveaway. Whatever I'm giving away, do people want it, right? Is that something that's, generally speaking, desirable? Then you move to the next thing, and it's like, all right, well, if they know I exist, if I already have their contact information, why haven't they purchased already, would be the question that I would ask. And is a 42% discount the thing that's going to actually get them to make the purchase? Maybe it is. I would also then go, why? Why do they need a discount to purchase the thing that says it's going to give them some result on the other side of it thing, right?
Maybe they're
So
cheap.
what was that?
Maybe they're cheap. Maybe they want to. Maybe
100%. And maybe certain people are cheap and have a budget. That is a very realistic plan. But then I would also say, if enough of your people are cheap or have a budget and they need to purchase things that are on sale at 42%, 50%, 30%, whatever, are you attracting the wrong people? Like if I have a thing that I say is $150, okay? And this thing is so wildly valuable for you. But the hard reality is nobody ever purchases it at 150 and it's always somewhere between 30 to 60% off. Is it really that valuable, or are you just trying to anchor your sales tactic and hope that people are just going to continue to go on? Because at some point, they're going to catch on to your bullshit. They're going to catch on. I'm not saying never discount, but if you always discount to get people to buy, what's the problem? And if it's rooted in how I do my sales process, you're a freaking bullshit artist. I'm sorry, but your shit ain't worth it. If you sell something for 10 grand, but always have to give it away for some other reason, why? If you're charging $10,000 for it, if you're charging that kind of money, it should produce a 10 times outcome. And if it doesn't, then you're in the wrong business. Like just plain and simple, easy. That's the thing. But we don't teach. And you were on a team. Company A, hey, we're going to do this thing. And it's like, why are we doing this thing? Because I can craft a better message in the beginning, through the journey, and on the end. Well, no, just create a graphic so they click to buy. All right. Now we're segmenting each of the kind of journey pieces when the reality is we want to pull them through this emotional journey. And it's like, oh, they came in for the discount. Now we're going to give them a different okay, cool. Like it'll still work. You'll still do your scholarship giveaway and it'll go really well. But like, maybe it could have gone better. Maybe you could have spoken to more people. Maybe you could have gotten more people to take action if you slowed down for 1 minute, helped everybody understand the principles, built a better fucking strategy instead of waking up on a Tuesday morning saying we have to execute this by end of day today and announce the winner on Monday.
You know what's crazy is that as you're doing that, I think about it from a products and like an outcomes perspective for the consumer. And it was the biggest pain in the ass to pull this data. But we looked at, I would say probably over a year and a half, at least 20 months worth of data with completions. And we found that if people had a discounted purchase price, I think it was like 4% of those people completed the course, completed the offering. I mean, that's so minuscule and it's just easy come, easy go. These things will sit like a book on the shelf. And so there's just not the same level of value, perceived value from the consumer, which if it's discounted, then how great can it really be? And I think that that's where we just need to be careful of racing to the bottom as a health industry of the more you discount, the more people are going to try to discount because they're trying to be competitive. And that's where now you commoditize your service offering instead of providing a stellar experience. And that's a losing proposition for everyone involved. The consumer won't finish it, although you'll probably have more consumers at first. But as no one really finishes it, and no one sees the positive buzz, and as people get more savvy and sophisticated, they're like, what the fuck is this? What am I doing here? What am I getting from this? And I think that is really beholden to those individuals, again, revisiting like principles versus tactics to always reconcile and take a second of how is that specific experience? How is that specific product or process or educational course or mastermind or whatever it is, what is the tangible thing that you will be empowered or enabled to do at the end of that? And if it's to be better at assessing, if it's being able to write better programs, if it's being able to generate more referrals or to create results or to improve how well your clients actually execute their plan, also known as compliance, then those are probably pretty good coaching outcomes. And if they don't lead to dollars, exactly like what you guys are saying, then why would you bother with that? So I think that those are really great questions to ask people that are on a sales call, and the salespeople, like, how is this going to lead to these outcomes? Can you provide and furnish any specific data? And that's where most companies will get caught with their pants down, because they can't quantify that, because they quite frankly don't really care about the end product versus the front dollar.
Yeah.
My experience.
Completely agree. 100%.
So it's not a problem, but it does hurt the industry at the end of the day.
Hurts the industry. It hurts the people that are attempting to achieve something, because we're not doing our duty to teach them valuable skills that are transferable amongst many different aspects. Like, we go out in school and we learn math, basic math. What's 1 + 1? And sure, in school, and we're not going to get back into the education system and all this stuff, but in school, we have to memorize that 1 + 1 = 2. But outside of school, in many different facets, we can use 1 + 1 = 2 to cook, to fitness, to do my job, to whatever it is that applies in many places. So we have to understand, is this something that can go elsewhere, or is it just for this very unique, very specific situation? Now, on the other side of that, I will tell you, pre-calc has not served me well in my adult life ever, on any level. I don't need to use the cosine of anything. I don't need to figure out tangents. Okay? Well, I'm on a tangent, but it's completely separate than a mathematical tangent. But it's one of those things where you wonder, now, if you were going into a field where you needed to understand those types of mathematical equations and things, it would be valuable for you 100%. So now that we're adults and we're not going through an institutional kind of learning system, and we're able to go, hey, I want to buy this course, this thing, to go solve this problem that I have, make sure you're learning the things that are truly going to help you, not this thing that might have maybe worked one time when I really maybe kind of sort of need money in my business, and I thought it would be a good way to go make another $1 billion off of you because it's this promise that one time worked for me kind of thing. And just be better.
Yeah. Well, and again, like, when you consider some of those experiences are older than 8 years at this point, and marketplace sophistication, people just get more savvy. Consumers, I walk into the gym these days and people actually do warm-ups. Like, people are using, and are they the great warm-ups? Probably usually not, but back in the day, it used to be go eat a whole bunch of steaks and cram a whole bunch of food in your gut in the 70s and go lift. And those guys were jacked. So there's, something to that, and also probably on the sauce. But, I think that outcome, result, what do you want? What are you doing? What are you getting? And what do you need to change? Like, it always comes back down to that would be the principle of review and reflection. The tactic would be those specific questions. And then, just comparing, are you on the right track for what you want? And if not, then again, the last question is, well, what are you going to change, or what needs to change? Is it the content? Is it the concept? And I think a lot of people really try to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They'll be like, oh, well, this didn't work at all, or I've already tried that. Well, yeah, maybe you sucked at executing it, though. Maybe it's not the actual strategy that didn't go poorly, but rather your ability to meaningfully execute against whatever unique obstacles that you came across. So, and I guess kind of as we're rounding up the 30-minute mark, I would like to know, do you guys have any universal principles and or tactics that have served you well in your current profession? Don't be a 1 in 1. Now, let me limit that. 1 in 1. What top principle that you think everyone should know, and maybe a tactic that supports that principle?
I'm going to give you a principle, strategy, and tactic all in one. And these trifectas are rare in life. And if anybody under the age of 18 is listening right now around you, you might want to pause this or skip over the next 5 seconds. Rule number 1 is don't be a dick.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. Simple, concise.
You can apply that in almost every single thing you do.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what a dick is. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to do that one on this episode. That's bait. Brandon, what about you?
Well, if your name is
Well, just it's everywhere today. Brandon, what's one principle and or tactic that you
Yeah,
found?
mine is maybe a little bit more G-rated, but my principle is just honesty, just being
Mhm.
honest about services that you're providing without you don't want to oversell. You definitely don't want to undersell yourself either, but just being honest. And it's taken me pretty far. I feel like I've been able to sell services and feel like I've never had anyone complain. So it's working out for me so far.
It,
what do you got, Andrew?
um, it's funny as I've gotten older. It's
These are going to be our first T-shirt, by the way.
Don't be
don't be honesty.
Don't be a genital. Don't be a right. Yeah, I think that for me, the principle, as I've gotten older, is I've become painfully aware how important relationships are. And the quality of your relationships, as I said in one of our first episodes, will make or break and determine the quality of your life. And so when I think about, if that's the principle, is relationships are king when it comes to opportunity, the outflow of that, or the tactic of how do you build a relationship, right? If we know we need them, it's to cultivate trust and build goodwill everywhere you go as often as possible. And it's not possible to do it all the time, every day. However, I think that status quo, if you do it more often than you don't, and you leave the other things alone and neutral, I think that people will be really set up for a lot of success. And I think especially in the service-based industry, where your success as a professional, as a brand, as a company is largely based upon your ability to generate results. If you're not building trust and you're not out there, sowing goodwill and doing things for people without the expectation of return, it really doesn't lend itself to sustainable business outcomes, because you get known as the gimmick, you get known as, whatever pejorative term you have as it relates to, people just kind of start to see through it. And that's not conducive. And that actually, goes against the principle of building relationships that are going to be, whole and beneficial for the long term. So that's really all I have on that one.
Just a quick question. And I'm not trying to belittle your guys' principles that you shared here, but I feel like my principle encapsulated what you guys shared. Honesty in relationships. You're not going to have those if you're a dick the entire time.
And some people have very superficial relationships when they are a dick, Steve.
Oh my God.
I mean, are we going to debate? We're going to go down this road now.
I'm just saying, people can. They're transactional.
Based upon your 3-minute explanation of relationships, we know that's not what you were talking about, Andrew.
Hey, listen, it's up to interpretation.
Right? Right? If you follow us, you know exactly how we function and form a relationship. So,
and if you don't, how
rule
dare
number
you
one.
shame on me?
Refer to rule
100%.
number one. So
we have 3 rules. It's not hard. Be a good person.
This was a much needed kind of, hopefully, ranting session for everybody. I know it was for me, but also I want to believe somebody's going to get something out of this episode. And as they're pursuing working with people and spending their time and spending their money, make sure you're getting something that's long lasting out of it. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with just getting a tactic. You need tactics to execute the strategies and the principles. They are important. But if that's the only thing you're getting, I hope it's not costing you a lot. Again, time and money. So